A few years ago, when I got involved in politics, I was talking to a seasoned newspaper reporter about the fact that there was one newspaper in the state that really didn't like me. Now, this was the home newspaper of the city where I lived, and typically your home newspaper is a little bit biased in your favor. But this particular newspaper did not like my political views at all, and they just hammered me at every opportunity. I asked him what to do about it. So think of the newspaper as a bully. And so I was asking him, what do you do with a bully? How do you handle this? And he looked at me and he said something that I will never forget. He said, the problem is, they are not afraid of you. Now, this is a guy who's been in the newspaper business his entire life. And he understood that newspaper people won't, or people in general, typically don't bully those of whom they are afraid. They just don't do it. Now, stop and think about that. If there is a pit bull in your neighborhood, chances are you're going to stay away from him. I was driving through the neighborhood the other night, and I saw what I thought was, I don't know, was it a fox or something? I don't think we have coyotes around here, but it was some kind of a critter that I didn't recognize, had kind of a dog-looking thing, and I didn't want to find out what it was. I wanted to stay away from it. There was something about it that was just intimidating. So, yeah, I just stayed away. Because there's some things that we fear, and he was saying one of the reasons they bully you is because they don't fear you. Now, people with autism can learn from that. One of the reasons they bully us is because they see us as easy targets, and there's no harm to them in hurting us. Lots of harm in hurting us, which they're perfectly okay because it's a transfer of worth. The less we feel worthy, the more they feel worthy. It's that domination thing that we talk about all the time on this channel, where it is just nature, not human nature, but just critter nature, to climb up the hierarchy, to be the alpha whatever, alpha male, alpha female. So what happens when you stand up to a bully? What happens when you stand up to the newspaper? Which I did, by the way. And I found out that some of those tactics actually worked. What happens when you stand up to a pit bull? What happens as a person with autism when you stand up to that person at school? Or that person at the workplace? Maybe it's even at church. Yep, they're there. Believe me, they're there. Maybe at the family reunion. Maybe at the grocery store. I mean, wherever you go, there are these people who like to dominate other people, and you are easy to dominate. So what happens when you turn the tables? I mean, just flip the tables, and it's not easy. You know, we did a video on what I call the possum syndrome. You know, where you just kind of freeze up and it's involuntary. It's kind of hard to stand up to a bully when you're frozen. And you know you should not be frozen, but it's neurological. It's not a choice. It just happens like a possum. You know, we say they're playing possum, they're not playing. It's a neurological reaction to stress. We do the same thing. So it's kind of tough. You know, when I say this, I guess the point that I'm making here is as we go through these 6 points, and we're going to go through them fairly quickly, that I'm not saying it's easy, and sometimes it's so not easy that it's impossible. But what happens when you stand up? Here's what I have learned based solely on my life experience. Is number one, they always react. And the first way they seem to react is with confusion, because this is not what they expected. They did not expect you to mouth back at them. They did not expect you to stand up physically to them. They did not expect you to get in their face. And I'm not saying you should do any of these things, but if you do them, they will be caught off guard. They will be confused. You will see that in their eyes and their facial expression. They won't know how to respond because you just totally caught them off guard. So the first thing you can expect when you stand up to a bully is confusion. I don't think that's necessarily true if you stand up to a bulldog, but I have noticed, I like to go out and walk and run a lot. And one thing I've learned from people who do this, bike riders in particular, is when you have a dog come after you, the thing to do is stop and turn, face the dog, and even walk toward him. Because the dog is confused. Now, I've never done that to a pit bull. Fortunately, I've never encountered a pit bull, but I've tried it several times when I was out walking. A dog would come after me and just stop and turn and walk toward him. And I usually carry a stick with me so I can push him away. But yeah, they're confused. They just totally change tactic. They don't know what else to do. So now instead of you being the one who is caught off guard, you're taking what some people call returning the shame. So they tried to shame you with their bullying tactic, and now you're turning around and you're shaming them back. And there's one little phrase that I've learned over the years that throws these people off guard, these people being bullies, typically narcissists or psychopaths. And that is, I just turn around and look at him and say, grow up. Would you grow up? Come on. Because the whole idea is to shame you, typically in front of others, because people don't often bully you unless there's other people around. They're showing off, but sometimes they do. They just like to feel that strength. But there's something about telling them to grow up. You just infected their brain with a thought that they didn't have. They're acting immature and childish. So the first thing is confusion. Second thing, sometimes they back off. They're like that dog that chases you and you turn around and face it, you walk toward the dog. And now the dog, he's no longer protecting his turf, now he's protecting himself or herself. It's a female dog. And sometimes they do back off, but what I have found with bullies is they very seldom back off permanently. They'll come after you again, but you just caught them off guard. So they may take a few steps backwards, literally, or sometimes figuratively. They back off a little bit, but don't be surprised if they come back after you, because here's what they'll do. Number 3 is they will look for, they've heard the bark, so to speak. You bark, using another dog analogy. They've heard you bark. Now they want to see if there's a bite behind it. And if there is no bite behind it, they're going to come after, they're going to double down. We'll talk about that in just a second. But if there is no bite, just bark, they think, oh, this guy's bluffing. And then they come after you with even more intensity. So what I'm saying is you need to make sure you got some bite behind that bark, or at least this is my experience. It's not going to work, and I can give you a good example. When I was growing up in school, I didn't have a lot of physical bullying. And I guess I was lucky. I said in another video, several of the videos, that the other guys would horseplay and fight and wrestle, whatever, and they would tend to get hurt. Unintentionally, but sometimes intentionally, but because I was a non-participant, I was kind of invisible. I didn't participate in any of that, so I probably made it out safer than most of them. Well, all of them. But there was a time when this kid caught me after school for no apparent reason, just came up and grabbed me by my neck, and, I was confused. I was shocked. Now, I've since taken Taekwondo lessons. I could have taken that guy down easily if I wanted to. But in my state of mind, I was already in the possum syndrome state of mind, state of thinking. And now the shock of this guy coming out of nowhere doing this to me, I just kind of froze, and I went home. And I told my brother, who was 5 years older than me and considerably more athletic. He didn't say anything. Just listen to what I said. I told him who it was. And the next day, this same kid came up to me and he said, I think I could whoop you, but I can't whoop you, brother. So what I found out was my brother, after he heard what I said, he went and found this kid. He went out in the street and found this kid wherever he lived. And probably my brother and some of his buddies, put him in his place, and they let him know, you touch Ken again, you're going to have some serious problems. And what was interesting is, because we put the bite behind the bark, What was interesting is the other guys at school who used to just kind of ignore me, maybe smart mouth me now and again, but they had a whole new respect for me. So that kind of takes us back to the very first thing we said. The seasoned journalist, he said, they're not afraid of you. And they need to know that there is not just a bark, you're not just standing up to them, but there is a bite. So before you stand up to somebody, you might want to make sure that you can follow through. That may take some thinking. Another thing they may do is if they haven't figured out that you mean business, they may bluff you. That's number 4, is bluff you. They may try to act tough with you still and try to bully you a little more and see if you do mean business. We talked about this in, I guess, everything I talk about, we talked about before. But I talked about this in another video where a shark, before it attacks its prey, will bump into it and see what kind of reaction it gets. And if the prey that it's thinking about attacking fights back, the shark rather won't proceed. Now, there is a person who does seminars on, how to protect yourself, how to defend yourself. And that's one of the points he brought out. The criminals will often test you before they attack you, unless they're absolutely sure they can overwhelm you, which if they're in a group or a gang, they probably don't bother testing you. But they may bluff you. They may bump into you. They may test you to see if you're going to follow through with your bite. And if you don't bite them, not physically, obviously, but if they don't see that follow through, they're going to start, they'll just double down. That's number 5. And you can expect them to do that. Now, at the workplace, what you need to do is you need to stop and think. You need to stop and ask yourself this question. What is my plan B? Before you go to work, before the first day of your job, having done a self-analysis, I've got this brain freeze, possum syndrome, if you do. I have these personality characteristics. I know that somebody is going to come after me. What am I going to do? Think about it before it happens. This is theory of mind, where we stop and think the way that other people think. This is something akin to game theory. When you're playing chess and you're trying to consider if you make this move, consider all the options that the other player is going to make. It's game theory. So you're kind of doing that. Think of it as a game. What are they going to do? And what am I going to do in response? How am I going to block that? So what we want to do is we want to expect them to expect us to be bluffing. We need to make the point clear. No, we're not bluffing. You mess with me, we're going to have problems. And then number 5, as we said, is they may double down. Narcissists don't like to lose, ever. This is a thing that they are addicted to. It's called egoism or egotism, however you want to say it, but they are addicted to their own ego. And when you back them down, it's like taking away their drug of choice, taking away somebody's cigarettes, taking away their food if they're food addicted, taking away their alcohol if they're alcoholics. They want it back. They want to control. And the 6th thing you can expect, number 1 was confusion. Number 2 was back down. Number 3, look for a bite rather than a bark, or look for a bark rather than a bite. Number 4 is to bluff you. Number 5, or to see if you're bluffing, I should say. Number 5 is to double down. And number 6 is overt aggression. Plan on it. Particularly with a psychopath or with a narcissist. This is called a smear campaign, and they do this all the time. In fact, they're probably already doing it. If the person is a narcissist and you know them, chances is they're trash talking you behind your back. That's just what they do. Now, they may not have an overt smear campaign launched against you, but they trash talk everybody. At least the narcissists that I have known in my life are people with strong narcissistic tendencies. This is how they control social circumstances. That's how they control the hierarchy. Through smear campaigns, ongoing, never stop smear campaign. But this time they're going to focus on you as an individual personally. And again, you need to accept the reality that these people do exist, and some of your nearest, dearest friends who you would trust with your life, who you would give the shirt off your back, you'd even take a bullet for them. It's possible that they're narcissists and they're just play acting. How do I know that? I've known too many of them. I've been caught in that scenario too often, and other people don't get it because, oh, this guy's so nice, he's so wonderful. They haven't seen the dark side. They haven't seen behind the veil, behind the mask. They haven't seen the legion of demons that are lurking in this guy's soul. But you've seen him, and now he's turned them loose. Expect it. Be ready for it. What I have learned to do is find out as much about people as I can. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I do want them to know if they hurt me, it's a bad choice. And I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm not doing it so I can be a bully, but I'm doing it so I can keep my sanity, my sense of self-dignity, of self-worth. And I also let's just finish up with this because it's so important. Bullies exist. Why would I tell a person with autism that bullies exist? Because if anybody knows it, they know it. Well, I'm saying it because we tend to slip into denial. One of our ways of dealing with bullies is to, well, people shouldn't be that way, maybe we'll give this guy a pass. It's just denial. So we need to learn, in my opinion, don't go into denial. If somebody is bullying you, do something about it. Don't just deny it. If you got something out of this video, man, I hope you did. But if you did, would you consider subscribing to our YouTube channel? Because we got lots more to go. Time permitting, I do one of these every day. Don't always have time, but I try to. And if you click the bell when you subscribe, then YouTube knows to notify you when I upload a new video. Give us a thumbs up. That helps the algorithms. And what is your opinion? Other people like to know what you think as well as what I think. So leave your opinion or your thoughts in the comment section, and we'll see y'all next time.